Sarah Martinez stared at the empty chair across from her at the family dinner table, the silence echoing louder than any argument ever could.
For 8 years, that chair had been filled with laughter, dreams, and promises of a future that would never come.
Now at 34, she sat alone in the house that once buzzed with hope, surrounded by baby clothes that would never be worn and nursery walls painted in colors that mocked her empty arms. The divorce papers lay scattered on the kitchen counter, like fallen leaves. Each signature a reminder of how quickly love could turn to blame. Her ex-husband's words still rang in her ears. "What's the point of being married if we can't even have a family?" As if her worth as a woman, as a wife, as a human being, could be measured solely by her ability to conceive. But sometimes, life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. Sometimes the family you're meant to have isn't the one you planned for. Sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places, wearing the face of a stranger and carrying the hopes of 5 little hearts that desperately need what you have to give. Sarah didn't know it yet, but her greatest pain was about to become her greatest purpose. Her empty arms were about to be filled not with 1 child, but with 5. And the man who would change everything was just 3 blocks away, trying to figure out how to braid his daughter's hair for school, while simultaneously packing 4 lunchboxes and searching for a missing soccer cleat. This is the story of how 2 broken people found wholeness in each other, and how sometimes the family you're meant to have is the one that chooses you back. Sarah Martinez had always believed that grocery shopping on Sunday mornings was a peaceful experience. The aisles were less crowded, the checkout lines moved faster, and she could take her time reading labels without feeling rushed. But this particular Sunday morning in October would shatter that illusion completely. She was standing in the cereal aisle debating between organic oats and regular cornflakes, when the chaos erupted behind her. First came the sound of running feet, followed by a small voice shouting, "Marcus, give me back my toy!" Then came the crash of something falling, followed by the distinctive sound of boxes hitting the floor. Sarah turned around to witness what could only be described as organized mayhem. A tall black man in his mid-30s was crouched down, trying to gather scattered cereal boxes while simultaneously holding a crying toddler in one arm. Around him, 4 other children of various ages were engaged in what appeared to be a complex negotiation involving a small dinosaur toy, a shopping cart, and who got to sit where. The man looked up, and Sarah caught sight of tired eyes that held both frustration and love in equal measure. His hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a small stain on his navy blue sweater that suggested someone had recently had an encounter with chocolate milk. Despite the chaos, or perhaps because of it, there was something immediately appealing about him. "I'm so sorry," he said, addressing both Sarah and the store in general. "Kids, please. We talked about using inside voices in the store." The oldest child, a girl who looked to be about 12, rolled her eyes dramatically. "Dad, Tommy started it. He took Emma's dinosaur, and then Maya tried to grab it, and then James knocked over the cart trying to help." Sarah found herself smiling despite the situation. She bent down and began helping gather the fallen cereal boxes. "It's okay," she said, handing him a box of Lucky Charms. "Happens to the best of us." The man paused in his gathering to look at her properly. "Thank you. I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Johnson. And this circus," he gestured to the children who were now watching Sarah with curious eyes, "is my family."
"I'm Sarah," she replied, standing up and dusting off her jeans. "And it's not a circus."
"It's just life with kids." Marcus laughed, a sound that was both weary and genuinely amused. "You're very kind, but I'm pretty sure the definition of circus includes a traveling company of acrobats and clowns, and that describes my crew perfectly." The toddler in his arms, who Sarah guessed was about 3, had stopped crying and was now staring at her with wide brown eyes. "You're pretty," the little boy announced, causing Marcus to flush slightly. "Thank you," Sarah said seriously, addressing the child directly. "You're pretty handsome yourself. What's your name?" "James," the boy replied, suddenly shy and burying his face in Marcus's shoulder. "And I'm Tommy," declared a boy who looked to be about 8, holding up the disputed dinosaur. "This is Rex. He's a T-Rex, but he's friendly. Do you like dinosaurs?" Before Sarah could answer, the girl who had identified herself as the eldest stepped forward. "I'm Zoe, and these are my siblings Emma, Maya, and you already met James. Our dad is trying really hard, but sometimes we're a lot to handle." There was something in the way Zoe said this, a maturity beyond her years, that touched Sarah's heart. This was clearly a child who had learned to be responsible early, who felt the weight of helping hold things together. "Where's your shopping list, Sarah?" asked Marcus, noticing his slightly overwhelmed expression as he tried to balance James, hold the shopping cart, and keep track of the other 4 children. Marcus laughed again, this time with a note of defeat. "What list?" "I had one, but I think it got lost somewhere between the car and the front door of the store. I usually just wander around and hope I remember everything we need." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "That's a recipe for disaster. Tell you what, why don't I help you? I'm in no rush and it might be easier with an extra pair of hands." Marcus hesitated, clearly not wanting to impose, but Tommy had already grabbed Sarah's hand and was tugging her toward the cart. "Please help us," he said earnestly. "Daddy always forgets the good cereal, and we need snacks for school." "Tommy," Marcus warned gently, "we don't ask strangers for help." "But she's not a stranger anymore," Emma piped up. She appeared to be about 6, with pigtails that were slightly crooked and a gap-toothed smile. She told us her name and she helped pick up the boxes. That makes her a friend. Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest at the simple logic of a 6-year-old. It had been so long since anyone had called her a friend, since she had felt useful or needed. "Emma's right," she said to Marcus. "I'm officially a friend now, and friends help each other grocery shop." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, and Sarah could see him weighing his options. Pride warred with practical necessity, and practical necessity won. "Okay," he said finally. "But only if you let me buy you coffee afterward. It's the least I can do." And so began the most chaotic grocery shopping experience of Sarah's life. Maya, who was about 5, appointed herself as the official list maker, carefully drawing pictures of the items they needed on the back of Marcus's receipt from the gas station. Tommy provided running commentary on every product they passed, with particular enthusiasm for anything involving superheroes or dinosaurs. Emma insisted on comparing prices, having apparently inherited a natural gift for mathematics and a concerning understanding of family budgets. Zoe managed the cart with the efficiency of someone who had clearly done this before, while James alternated between walking and demanding to be carried. Marcus, Sarah noticed, was incredibly patient with all of them. He listened to Maya's artistic interpretations of grocery items, answered Tommy's endless questions about why cereal companies used cartoon characters, praised Emma's price comparisons, and never once raised his voice or seemed annoyed by the constant chatter and requests for various snacks and treats.
How do you do it?
Sarah asked quietly as they stood in the produce section, watching Marcus help James pick out apples while the other children debated the merits of different types of grapes.
Do what?
Marcus asked, glancing at her, while he bagged the apples James had chosen.
"All of this, 5 kids, grocery shopping, staying so calm. Love all, trust a few, do wrong to none. All of this, 5 kids, grocery shopping, staying so calm. Staying so calm. Staying so calm. Staying so calm. Staying so calm." "You make it look easy." Marcus was quiet for a moment, his hands stilling on the apple bag. "It's not easy," he said finally. "Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. That they're good kids, and they didn't ask for any of this to be complicated. I figure if I can at least keep them fed and clothed and feeling loved, I'm doing something right." There was something in his voice, a hint of sadness or loss, that made Sarah want to ask more questions. But before she could, Tommy came running over with a bunch of bananas. "Dad, can we get these? Emma says they're good for you, and they look like little smiles when you peel them halfway." "Bananas it is," Marcus agreed, taking the bunch and adding it to their cart. The rest of the shopping trip passed in a blur of negotiations over snack choices, discussions about dinner plans, and increasingly elaborate stories from Tommy about what various vegetables might do if they came to life. Sarah found herself genuinely enjoying the chaos, laughing at the children's antics and marveling at Marcus's ability to maintain order while still letting his kids be kids. By the time they reached the checkout line, Sarah felt like she had been absorbed into their little family unit. James had insisted on holding her hand while they walked. Maya had shown her at least 15 different drawings, and even Zoe had warmed up enough to ask Sarah's opinion on whether they should get chocolate chip or oatmeal cookies. 2 carts, 1 family, the teenage cashier observed with a grin as they began unloading their groceries. "Something like that," Marcus replied, shooting Sarah a grateful smile. As they finished checking out and headed toward the parking lot, Sarah felt a strange reluctance to say goodbye. The morning had been unexpectedly wonderful, full of laughter and warmth and a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in months. "Daddy," Emma said as they reached Marcus's van, "can Sarah come have coffee with us? You said you were going to buy her coffee. Marcus looked embarrassed. I meant at a coffee shop, sweetheart. I'm sure Sarah has things to do today. The truth was, Sarah didn't have anything to do. Her Sundays had become exercises in filling time, watching movies she didn't care about, and cleaning a house that was already spotless. The prospect of spending more time with this chaotic, wonderful family was infinitely more appealing than returning to her empty house. Actually, she said, I'd love to have coffee. But why don't you all come to my place? I live just a few blocks from here, and I have a backyard where the kids could play while we talk. The children immediately began chattering excitedly about the possibility, but Marcus looked uncertain. Are you sure? We're a lot to handle, and I don't want to impose. You're not imposing, Sarah assured him. I'm asking. Besides, when's the last time you had coffee that you didn't have to make yourself? Marcus laughed. You make a compelling argument. Okay, kids, but we're going to be on our best behavior at Sarah's house. That means inside voices, no running, and we clean up after ourselves. Yes, Dad, came the chorus of voices, though Sarah suspected their definitions of best behavior might vary considerably. As she gave Marcus her address and watched him load 5 children and multiple bags of groceries into his van, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in a very long time. Excitement about the immediate future. For the first time in months, she was looking forward to the next few hours instead of just trying to get through them. She drove home with a smile on her face, already planning which coffee to make and wondering if she had enough snacks for 5 children. Her house, which had felt so empty and quiet that morning, was about to be filled with voices and laughter and life. Sarah Martinez had gone grocery shopping expecting to buy food for 1. Instead, she had found herself accidentally adopting a family of 6 for the afternoon, and as she pulled into her driveway and began preparing for the organized chaos that was about to descend on her peaceful home, she couldn't remember the last time she had felt this happy. Sarah's house had never hosted 5 children before, and within the first 10 minutes of the Johnson family's arrival, it was abundantly clear that her carefully organized living space was about to be transformed. James immediately discovered her collection of books and began pulling volumes from the lower shelves to read to his dinosaur toy. Maya found the art supplies Sarah kept in a basket by the window and announced that she was going to draw a picture of everyone. Tommy was fascinated by the family photos scattered throughout the living room, asking detailed questions about each person pictured. "Who's this?" he asked, holding up a wedding photo that Sarah realized with a pang she should have put away months ago. "That's me and my ex-husband," Sarah said simply, taking the photo gently from Tommy's hands. "Where is he now?" Emma asked with the direct curiosity of a 6-year-old. "He lives somewhere else now," Sarah replied, setting the photo face down on the mantel. "Sometimes grown-ups decide they're better as friends than as married people." Marcus, who was helping Zoe organize the other children's activities, caught Sarah's eye and gave her a sympathetic look. "Kids," he said gently, "remember what we talked about asking personal questions." "It's okay," Sarah assured him. "Questions are how we learn about each other." While the younger children explored the living room, Zoe had positioned herself strategically where she could watch everyone, including Sarah. There was something almost protective in the 12-year-old's posture, as if she was evaluating whether Sarah could be trusted with her family. "Your house is really clean," Zoe observed. "Not entirely as a compliment," Sarah laughed. "It's easy to keep clean when it's just me living here. I imagine it would be much harder with 5 kids running around."
You don't have any kids?
Maya asked, looking up from her drawing. The question hung in the air like a soap bubble, beautiful and fragile and liable to burst at any moment. Sarah felt Marcus's eyes on her, along with the curious gazes of all 5 children. She could give the simple answer, the one that avoided painful explanations and kept the mood light. Or she could tell the truth. "No," she said finally. "I don't have children. My ex-husband and I tried for a long time, but it didn't happen for us." "That's sad," Emma said matter-of-factly. "You would be a good mom. You helped us at the store, and you're sharing your house with us." The simple kindness of the observation hit Sarah like a gentle punch to the chest. She had to clear her throat before she could speak. "Thank you, Emma. That's very sweet of you to say." Tommy, meanwhile, had discovered Sarah's piano in the corner of the living room. "Do you play music?" he asked, pressing middle C and listening to the note ring out. "I do," Sarah said. "Do you like music?" "We all take piano lessons," Zoe said. "But Dad's not very good at helping us practice." Marcus laughed from the kitchen, where he was attempting to figure out Sarah's coffee machine. "I heard that, Zoe. I'll have you know I'm excellent at sitting next to you while you practice."
That's not the same thing, Maya called out. You don't know which notes are wrong. Sarah walked over to the piano and sat down on the bench.
What song are you working on, Zoe? Zoe joined her at the piano, suddenly looking less guarded and more like the 12-year-old she was. Für Elisa, but I keep messing up this one part. She played the first few bars competently, then stumbled over a passage in the middle.
Here, Sarah said, demonstrating the tricky section slowly. Try thinking of it like telling a story.
The first part is asking a question, and this part is starting to answer it. As Zoe tried again, this time with more success, the other children gathered around the piano. James climbed onto the bench next to Sarah, pressing random keys and giggling at the sounds they made. Tommy stood beside her, asking if she knew any songs about dinosaurs, while Emma and Maya took turns requesting their favorite Disney songs. Marcus appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee, watching the scene at the piano with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read. There was something soft in his eyes, something that looked almost like hope.
"This is nice," he said quietly, setting Sarah's coffee on the side table near the piano. "They don't usually take to strangers this quickly."
"I don't feel like a stranger," Sarah admitted, helping James find a simple melody he could play with one finger. "This feels natural." They spent the next hour rotating between piano time, drawing with Maya's art supplies, and listening to Tommy's increasingly elaborate dinosaur stories. Marcus proved to be an engaged and patient father, settling disputes with gentle humor and making sure everyone felt included in whatever activity was happening. Sarah found herself watching him interact with his children, noting the way he crouched down to Emma's level when she wanted to show him something, how he listened seriously to Tommy's theories about what dinosaurs might have eaten for breakfast, and how he gave each child individual attention, even in the chaos of group activities. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said when they found themselves alone in the kitchen while the children were absorbed in building a fort out of couch cushions in the living room. "Of course," Marcus replied, leaning against her counter with his coffee cup. "What happened to their mother?" The question came out more bluntly than she intended, and she immediately felt embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that's too personal." "You don't have to answer that." Marcus was quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee cup. "It's okay. Lisa died 3 years ago. Cancer. It was a really hard time for all of us." Sarah felt her heart clench with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating." "It was," Marcus said simply. "She was an amazing mother, an amazing person. The kids were so young when she got sick. James barely remembers her, which breaks my heart in a completely different way." "How do you do it?" Sarah asked. "Raise 5 children on your own? Work? Keep everything together?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Most days I don't feel like I'm keeping anything together. I feel like I'm drowning, and I'm just hoping I can keep my head above water long enough for them to grow up and not need me to have all the answers." "But you're doing such a good job," Sarah protested. "They're wonderful children. They're polite and kind and clearly love each other and you very much." "Lisa deserves the credit for that," Marcus said. "She was the one who taught them how to be good people. I'm just trying not to mess up what she started." There was something heartbreaking about the way he said it, as if he was constantly measuring himself against a memory and finding himself lacking. Sarah recognized the feeling all too well. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "I spent 8 years trying to have children with my ex-husband. 8 years of doctors and treatments and procedures and disappointment, and somewhere along the way he started looking at me like I was broken. Like I wasn't doing my job as a wife because I couldn't give him the family he wanted." Marcus looked up from his coffee, his eyes full of sympathy. "That's awful. I'm sorry he made you feel that way. The point is," Sarah continued, "I spent so much time feeling like a failure as a woman because I couldn't have children that I forgot there are other ways to be part of a family. Other ways to love and be loved and make a difference in kids' lives." "Like playing piano with 5 strange children on a Sunday afternoon?" Marcus asked, with a slight smile. "Exactly like that," Sarah agreed. From the living room came the sound of delighted shrieking, followed by Marcus calling out, "Everything okay in there? We built the best fort ever," Tommy shouted back. "You have to come see it." Marcus and Sarah returned to the living room to find that the children had constructed an elaborate fort using every couch cushion, throw pillow, and blanket they could find. It sprawled across most of the room, with multiple chambers and what appeared to be a complex system of tunnels. "This is incredibly impressive," Sarah said, genuinely amazed at their architectural achievement. "Can you come inside with us?" Emma asked, peeking out of what appeared to be the main entrance. "We have room for 2 more people, but you have to crawl." Sarah looked at Marcus, who shrugged with a grin. "When in Rome,"
he said, getting down on his hands and knees to crawl into the fort. The next 20 minutes were spent crammed into a blanket fort with 5 children, listening to ghost stories from Zoe, singing songs with Maya, and playing an elaborate game of pretend that involved dinosaurs, princesses, and space travel, often simultaneously. Sarah couldn't remember the last time she had laughed so hard or felt so completely present in a moment. When they finally emerged from the fort, hair mussed and faces flushed from laughter, Sarah caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. She looked different somehow, more alive than she had in months. The careful makeup and perfectly styled hair she had started the day with had been replaced by something more natural, more real. "We should probably head home," Marcus said reluctantly, checking his watch. "It's getting close to dinner time, and Sunday night means getting ready for school the next day." The children immediately began protesting, asking if they could stay longer, if Sarah could come to their house for dinner, if they could have a sleepover, but Marcus was firm, though gentle in his decision. "We've imposed on Sarah enough for one day," he said. "Besides, we need to give her time to put her house back together after we turned it upside down." "I don't mind the mess," Sarah said, and she was surprised to realize it was true. The scattered cushions, the art supplies spread across the coffee table, the books pulled from shelves. It all felt like evidence of life being lived, of joy being shared. As the family gathered their things and prepared to leave, each child made a point of hugging Sarah goodbye. James clung to her leg for a long moment, and Tommy made her promise to remember the song about friendly dinosaurs they had made up. Maya gave her the picture she had drawn, which showed all 7 of them standing in front of Sarah's house under a smiling sun. Zoe was the last to say goodbye, and she surprised Sarah by asking quietly, "Will we see you again?" "I hope so," Sarah replied honestly. Marcus lingered in the doorway after the children had trooped out to the van. "Thank you," he said, "for the grocery store rescue, for the coffee, for letting us invade your home." The kids had a wonderful time, and honestly, so did I. "So did I," Sarah said. "More than I've had in a very long time." They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to end the day. Finally, Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Would you mind if I got your number? Maybe we could do this again sometime. I mean, maybe something less chaotic than grocery shopping and blanket forts, but I'd like that," Sarah said, rattling off her number. And for what it's worth, I liked the chaos. After they left, Sarah stood in her living room surrounded by the cheerful destruction 5 children could create in a few hours. She should clean up, restore order, return her home to its previous pristine state. Instead, she left Maya's drawing on the coffee table, left the piano bench pulled out where James had climbed up to play, left the couch cushions slightly askew from their fort-building adventure. For the first time in months, her house felt like it had been lived in, like it had served its purpose as more than just a place to sleep and store her belongings. It felt like it had been a home, even if just for a few hours. As Sarah finally began to tidy up, she found herself humming the silly song about friendly dinosaurs that she and Tommy had invented. She was smiling without realizing it, and for the first time since her divorce, she was looking forward to tomorrow instead of just trying to survive today. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Thank you again for today." "The kids are already asking when they can see you again," Marcus Sarah typed back quickly. "Thank you for letting me share your Sunday. Tell them anytime." As she hit send, Sarah realized that something fundamental had shifted in her world. This morning she had been a woman defined by what she lacked, by what she couldn't have or couldn't be. Tonight, she was a woman who had spent the day being exactly what someone needed her to be, and that felt like everything. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Sarah had become what she privately thought of as an honorary member of the Johnson family chaos. What had started with exchanged phone numbers had evolved into daily text messages, emergency babysitting calls, and regular appearances at soccer games, school concerts, and family dinners that somehow always seemed to require one more place setting. She learned that Marcus worked as a software engineer for a tech company downtown, often putting in long hours to provide for his family. She discovered that Zoe was struggling with algebra despite being generally excellent at school, that Tommy had an encyclopedic knowledge of dinosaur facts but couldn't remember to put his backpack in the same place twice, and that Emma had inherited her mother's gift for making everyone around her feel special and loved. Maya, Sarah learned, was the family artist, always carrying a sketch pad and leaving drawings tucked into unexpected places, lunchboxes, coat pockets, taped to bathroom mirrors. And James, the baby of the family at 3 years old, had decided that Sarah was his personal jungle gym, climbing onto her lap whenever she sat down and insisting that she read him bedtime stories during the increasingly frequent evenings she spent at their house. The Johnson house was everything Sarah's wasn't,
Lived in, chaotic, warm, and slightly messy despite everyone's best efforts. There were school papers stuck to the refrigerator with alphabet magnets, a perpetual pile of shoes by the front door, and a family calendar so covered in activities and appointments that it looked like abstract art. It was the kind of house where you might find a dinosaur toy in the silverware drawer, or discover that someone had used the good couch cushions to build a spaceship in the backyard. Sarah found herself naturally filling gaps in their routine without really thinking about it. When Marcus got stuck late at work, she picked up kids from school. When Zoe was frustrated with her math homework, Sarah sat with her at the kitchen table until the problems made sense. When Maya needed someone to admire her latest artistic creation, Sarah provided enthusiastic commentary and careful questions about color choices and composition. It was during one of these after-school homework sessions that Sarah began to understand the full scope of what Marcus was juggling as a single father. "Dad tries really hard," Zoe confided one Tuesday afternoon, as Sarah helped her work through a particularly challenging algebra problem. "But sometimes I think he's more worried about us than he lets on."
What do you mean?
Sarah asked, though she was beginning to suspect she knew. Zoe chewed on her pencil eraser, a habit Sarah had noticed usually preceded the 12-year-old's more thoughtful observations. "He thinks we don't notice, but sometimes he stays up really late working on his computer after we go to bed. And he always asks if we need anything, like he's scared we're going to say yes." Sarah's heart ached for Marcus, recognizing the fear of not being enough that she knew all too well. "Your dad loves you all very much," she said carefully. "Sometimes when people love us that much, they worry about making sure they're doing everything right." "I know he loves us," Zoe said. "I just wish he knew that we're okay. Like, we miss Mum, and some things are hard, but we're okay. Dad doesn't have to fix everything all by himself." That evening, after homework was finished and dinner was cleaned up, Sarah found herself lingering longer than usual. Marcus was loading the dishwasher while the younger kids played in the living room and Zoe practiced piano upstairs, the sound of fur Elise drifting down through the house. "She's getting really good at that piece," Sarah observed, drying the dishes Marcus handed her. "Thanks to you," Marcus replied. "I can't tell you how much it means to her to have someone who can actually help her with the parts she's struggling with." "I enjoy it," Sarah said honestly. "I'd forgotten how much I love teaching music." Marcus paused in his loading of plates. "You taught music?" "Before I got married, I taught piano lessons to kids. I loved it, but David thought it would be better if I focused on other things. Like trying to have a family." The words came out more bitter than she intended. Marcus turned to face her fully, dish towel in his hands. "You gave up something you loved?" "I gave up a lot of things I loved," Sarah admitted. "I thought that was what marriage meant. Compromising, focusing on the future we were building together. I didn't realize until after the divorce that I'd stopped being myself somewhere along the way." "And now?" Marcus asked gently. Sarah considered the question, looking around the warm, chaotic kitchen where she had somehow become part of the evening routine. "Now, I feel like myself again. Different than before, but myself." From the living room came the sound of a small argument brewing between Tommy and Emma over television channel selection. Marcus started to move toward the noise, but Sarah touched his arm lightly. "I'll handle it," she said. "Finish the dishes." In the living room, she found Tommy holding the remote control above his head, while Emma jumped futilely to reach it. James was watching the conflict with wide eyes from his position on the couch, clutching his dinosaur toy. "What seems to be the problem here?" Sarah asked, settling onto the couch between the combatants. "Tommy won't let anyone else pick what to watch," Emma announced with the righteous indignation of a wronged 6-year-old. "He always picks dinosaur shows, and Maya wants to watch art videos, and I want to watch the princess movie." "And what does James want to watch?" Sarah asked, looking at the 3-year-old who rarely got to voice his preferences in sibling negotiations. "Trucks," James said quietly. "Big trucks." Sarah looked at each of the children thoughtfully. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to set a timer for 15 minutes, and Tommy can watch dinosaur shows. Then we'll set another timer for 15 minutes for Maya's art videos. Then 15 minutes of Emma's princess movie, and 15 minutes of James's truck shows. Everyone gets a turn, and everyone has to be respectful during other people's turns." "But that means we only get 15 minutes each," Tommy protested. "Which is better than fighting for 30 minutes and nobody getting to watch anything," Sarah pointed out reasonably. To her surprise, the children agreed to this plan with minimal grumbling. She helped them set up the rotation system, complete with a kitchen timer and a written schedule that Maya illustrated with small drawings representing each person's choice. When Marcus finished in the kitchen and joined them in the living room,
He found all 4 children peacefully watching a documentary about Triceratops, while Sarah sat with James on her lap, quietly narrating the action for him in whispers.
"How did you manage this miracle?" he asked, settling into his armchair with the slightly stunned expression of a parent who has witnessed successful conflict resolution among his children. "Simple democracy and the power of timers," Sarah replied with a grin. "Each person gets 15 minutes of control." "Brilliant," Marcus said. "Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you're too close to it," Sarah said. "Sometimes you need an outside perspective." As the evening progressed through the television rotation system, Sarah noticed how naturally she had fallen into the rhythm of the household. She helped James navigate the remote during his truck show segment, discussed color theory with Maya during her art video time, and answered Tommy's questions about whether princesses in movies were historically accurate during Emma's selection. When it was time for the younger children to get ready for bed, Sarah found herself automatically helping with the bedtime routine that she had observed but never participated in directly. She helped Emma find matching pajamas, supervised toothbrushing, and listened to Maya's detailed plans for tomorrow's art project, while Marcus got James ready for bed. "Sarah, will you read me a story?" James asked as Marcus tucked him into his toddler bed. "If your dad says it's okay," Sarah replied, looking to Marcus for permission. "She reads really good voices," Emma added from her bed across the room where she was supposed to be settling down but was clearly listening to every word. "Different voices," Maya corrected from her top bunk. "She reads with different voices." Marcus smiled at his daughter's grammar lesson. "Different voices it is. Sarah, if you don't mind, James would love a story." Sarah selected a picture book from the impressive collection on the bookshelf and settled into the chair between James's toddler bed and the girls' bunk beds. As she read, doing voices for each character as requested, she was aware of Marcus standing in the doorway, watching. There was something in his expression that made her heart flutter, a softness, a warmth, something that looked almost like wonder. When she finished the story and kissed each of the 3 younger children goodnight, Marcus walked her downstairs while Zoe finished her evening practice session on the piano. "Coffee?" he asked, though it was getting late for caffeine. "Just water," Sarah replied. "I should probably head home soon anyway." They stood in the kitchen, and Sarah was suddenly aware of how domestic the moment felt. She was wearing one of his daughter's hair ties around her wrist, had Emma's artwork tucked into a purse, and could still smell James's baby shampoo on her shirt from when he had hugged her goodnight. "Sarah," Marcus said, then stopped, seeming to wrestle with something. "What is it?" she asked. "I need to ask you something, and I hope it doesn't make things weird between us." Sarah felt her stomach flutter with nervousness. "Okay." Marcus ran his hand through his hair. A gesture she had learned meant he was thinking carefully about his words. "The kids are getting attached to you, really attached. And I need to understand what this is for you. Because if you're going to get tired of the chaos and the noise and the constant needs, I need to know now, before they get more invested." The question hung in the air between them, loaded with all the fears of a father who had already watched his children lose one important person in their lives. "Are you asking if I'm going to disappear?" Sarah asked quietly. "I'm asking what you want from this," Marcus said, "from us. Because my kids have been through enough loss, and I can't let them get their hearts broken again if you decide this isn't what you thought it would be." Sarah understood the question behind the question. He wasn't just protecting his children, he was protecting himself. And she realized that somewhere in the past 3 weeks, her feelings for this family had evolved into something much more complex than simple friendship. "Marcus," she said carefully, 3 weeks ago, I was a woman whose biggest accomplishment of the day was keeping my house clean and getting through another Sunday alone. Now, I'm someone who knows that Tommy's favorite dinosaur is Parasaurolophus because they had cool head crests, and that Maya draws better when she's sitting on the floor instead of at a table, and that Emma is working on reading chapter books but still likes picture books at bedtime. Marcus was listening intently, but his expression remained guarded. "I know that Zoe worries about being responsible for too much, and that James still has bad dreams sometimes and needs extra snuggling. I know that you take your coffee black because you're usually too busy to add anything to it, and that you stay up late working because you're worried about providing for everyone." "Sarah, I'm not finished," she said gently. "I know all of these things because I pay attention to them, because I care about them. Because somewhere along the way, your family became important to me. More important than I expected, more important than I was prepared for." Marcus was very still, and Sarah took a breath before continuing. "I can't promise that everything will always be perfect, or that I'll always know the right thing to do, but I can promise that I'm not going anywhere. Your children aren't an obligation to me, Marcus. They're a joy. This chaos that you're so worried about, it's the best part of my day. For a long moment, Marcus didn't speak. Then he stepped closer, close enough that Sarah could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Are you sure? He asked. Because it gets harder before it gets easier. School events and soccer practices and homework battles and teenage attitudes. Sick kids and sleepless nights and grocery bills that make you question your life choices. Are you sure you want to sign up for all of that? Sarah thought about her empty house, her quiet mornings, her carefully controlled life that had felt more like existing than living. I'm sure, she said.
The question is, are you sure you want me to sign up for all of that? Marcus smiled then, the first genuinely relaxed smile she had seen from him all evening. Sarah Martinez, I've been hoping you would say that for 2 weeks.
From upstairs, they could hear Zoe finishing her piano practice, the final notes of Für Elise floating down through the house.
It was a piece about love and loss and hope, Sarah realized, and somehow that felt exactly right for this moment. So, what happens now? She asked. Now, Marcus said, you officially become part of the most beautifully chaotic family you've ever seen. Fair warning, there's no going back once you're officially in. I don't want to go back, Sarah said, and she meant it more than she had ever meant anything in her life. Upstairs, Zoe had moved on to practicing scales, and soon they would hear the sounds of children brushing teeth and getting into pajamas and calling for last drinks of water. Tomorrow there would be school lunches to pack and homework to check and the eternal search for missing socks and backpacks. And Sarah would be part of it all, not as a visitor or a helper, but as family. The family she had never expected to find, but exactly the family she had always needed. 6 months after their grocery store meeting, Sarah's life had been completely transformed. Her calendar was now filled with school events, doctor appointments, and birthday parties. Her refrigerator was covered in artwork and permission slips and photos of gap-toothed smiles. Her car contained juice boxes, extra sweaters, and at least 3 different toys at any given time. And she had never been happier. The transition from friend to family member hadn't always been smooth. There had been moments of adjustment, times when Sarah had wondered if she was overstepping boundaries, or if the children were testing her commitment to staying. But with patience, consistency, and Marcus's steady support, she had found her place in their household rhythm. She had also found something she hadn't expected to find. She was falling in love with Marcus Johnson. It had happened gradually, so slowly that she hadn't recognized it at first. It was in the way he made silly faces to make James laugh during dinner, the way he listened seriously to Tommy's elaborate dinosaur theories, the patience he showed when helping Emma with her reading homework, never making her feel bad when she struggled with difficult words. It was in the way he trusted Sarah with his children's hearts, the way he made room for her opinions in family decisions, the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention, like she was something precious and unexpected that he was afraid might disappear. The realization had hit her fully one Tuesday evening in March, when Marcus came home from work looking exhausted and defeated. His boss had announced layoffs, and while Marcus's job was safe for now, the uncertainty had shaken him. I keep thinking about what would happen to the kids if I lost my job, he confided to Sarah as they cleaned up after dinner. The children were scattered throughout the house doing homework and practicing instruments, the sound of their activities creating a familiar background hum.
You're not going to lose your job, Sarah said. But Marcus shook his head.
You don't know that, and if I did, I don't know what we'd do. The mortgage, the kids' activities, college funds. I lie awake at night sometimes thinking about how precarious everything is. Sarah set down the dish she was drying and turned to face him fully. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hands in hers. They were strong hands, she noticed, with calluses from weekend yard work and small cuts from attempting home repairs that probably should have been left to professionals. Marcus, she said firmly, you are not alone in this anymore. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. He looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face. We, Sarah confirmed. You, me, and 5 kids who think you hung the moon. You're not carrying this by yourself anymore. It was then, seeing the relief and gratitude and something deeper in his expression, that Sarah realized she wasn't just committed to his children, or to being part of their family structure. She was in love with this man, with his dedication to his children, his quiet strength, his terrible jokes and patient heart, and the way he made her feel like she belonged somewhere. That night, after the children were in bed, and Sarah was getting ready to drive home to her increasingly neglected house, Marcus walked her to her car, as he always did. Sarah,
he said as she reached for her door handle. "Can I ask you something?"
Always,
she replied.
Marcus seemed to gather his courage, running his hand through his hair in the gesture she had come to recognize as his thinking tell. Would you maybe want to stay for breakfast tomorrow? I mean, if you don't have to work early.
The kids always ask why you have to leave. And Emma specifically requested that you be here to make her lunch because apparently I don't cut sandwiches the right way. Sarah laughed.
I cut them diagonally instead of straight across. It's hardly revolutionary sandwich technology.
It is to Emma, Marcus said with a smile.
But really, you don't have to if you don't want to. I know you have your own life, your own routine.
Sarah looked back at the house, where she could see the glow of nightlights in upstairs windows and the warm yellow light from the kitchen where Marcus had left the porch light on for her, as he always did. Then she looked at Marcus, who was trying to appear casual about an invitation that felt like much more than breakfast.
"I'd love to stay," she said, "but I'll need to go home and get some clothes for tomorrow." "Or," Marcus said, then paused, looking nervous. "We could stop by your house now and get what you need, if you want. No pressure." Sarah studied his face in the dim light from the street lamp.
"Marcus, are you asking me to sleep over?" He laughed, a sound that was half nervous and half hopeful. "I'm asking if you want to. In the guest room, I mean. Nothing presumptuous. Just, it would be nice to have you here in the morning when everyone wakes up. It would feel like... Like what?" Sarah prompted gently.
"Like family," Marcus finished quietly. 20 minutes later, Sarah was following Marcus back to his house with an overnight bag in her car and butterflies dancing in her stomach. It wasn't that she hadn't spent evenings at the Johnson house before. She had become a regular fixture for dinners and homework help and bedtime stories. But staying overnight felt like crossing a threshold, making a statement about what she was to this family and what they were to her. The children reacted to the news that Sarah would be there for breakfast with varying degrees of excitement. James immediately wanted to show her his room and explain where she could sleep if she wanted to stay in his bed instead of the guest room. Emma began planning an elaborate breakfast menu that included pancakes shaped like flowers and orange juice served in fancy glasses. Tommy launched into a detailed description of his morning routine so Sarah would know exactly when to wake up to see his impressive collection of dinosaur pajamas. Maya, ever the artist, announced that she would draw Sarah a picture to put on the guest room dresser so it would feel more homey. And Zoe, who had grown from suspicious to protective of Sarah over the past months, simply smiled and said, "Good. It's about time." That night, as Sarah settled into the guest room that had apparently been designated as hers for future occasions, complete with Maya's promised artwork, and a stack of books on the nightstand that seemed carefully chosen for her interests, she could hear the sounds of the house settling into sleep around her. There was Marcus moving around his room next door, the sound of water running as he brushed his teeth, and the creak of floorboards as he checked on the children one final time. There were whispered conversations from the girls' room as Zoe and Emma discussed something important, in voices too low for Sarah to make out. There was Tommy talking to himself in his room, probably narrating some elaborate dinosaur adventure as he fell asleep. And there was James, who had apparently decided that the guest room was too far away, and had appeared in Sarah's doorway, clutching his dinosaur toy and looking hopeful. "Can I sleep in here with you?" he asked in the whisper that 3-year-olds think is quiet but actually carries throughout the house. Sarah looked at the little boy in his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction, and felt her heart melt completely. "If your daddy says it's okay." Marcus appeared in the doorway moments later, looking apologetic.
"James, we talked about this."
Sarah needs her own space to sleep. "It's okay," Sarah said quickly. "I don't mind if he wants to stay." Marcus looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" "He's a restless sleeper, and he talks in his sleep about dinosaurs. It's actually pretty entertaining, but not necessarily conducive to actual rest." "I'm sure," Sarah said, patting the bed next to her. "Come on, James. But you have to close your eyes and try to sleep." As James climbed into bed next to her, chattering about which dinosaur would make the best pillow, Sarah caught Marcus's eye. There was something soft and grateful in his expression, something that made her chest feel warm and tight at the same time. "Good night, Sarah," he said quietly. "Good night, Marcus," she replied. After he left, James snuggled up against Sarah's side, with his dinosaur toy tucked under his arm. "Sarah," he whispered. "Yes, sweetheart? Are you going to be my new mummy?" The question hung in the air like a star, bright and beautiful and impossible to ignore.
Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she considered how to answer a 3-year-old's perfectly reasonable question about the changing dynamics of his family. "What would you think about that?" she asked carefully. James was quiet for a moment, thinking with the seriousness that small children bring to important questions. "I think it would be good," he said finally. "Daddy smiles more when you're here, and you know how to make the good sandwiches, and you don't get mad when I spill things." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Those are very good reasons. And Tommy says you know more about dinosaurs than most grown-ups, and Emma says you help her with her reading better than the teacher, and Maya says you understand about colors, and Zoe says you make Daddy less worried all the time." Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah thought. "And what do you say?" James turned to face her in the dim light from the nightlight shaped like a triceratops. "I say you give the best hugs and you smell like cookies and you make everything feel safe." Sarah had to clear her throat before she could speak. "I love all of you very much. You know that, right?" "We love you too," James said matter-of-factly, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "That's why you should be our mommy." The next morning, Sarah woke to the sound of small feet on hardwood floors and whispered conversations in the hallway. James was still asleep next to her, one arm flung across her chest, and his dinosaur toy somehow relocated to her pillow. Through the guest room window, she could see that it was early spring morning, with sunlight filtering through the trees in the backyard and the promise of a warm day ahead. She could smell coffee brewing downstairs, which meant Marcus was already up and starting the morning routine that she had observed but never been part of from the very beginning. Today, she realized she would be part of the whole day from start to finish. The morning chaos of getting everyone dressed and fed and out the door, the evening routine of homework and dinner and bedtime stories, and everything in between. "Sarah?" James stirred next to her, blinking sleepy eyes. "Are you really here? I thought I dreamed it." "I'm really here," Sarah confirmed, dropping a kiss on his tousled head. "Should we go see what everyone else is up to?" Downstairs, they found Marcus in the kitchen, wearing an apron that read "World's Okayest Dad," a gift from Zoe, and attempting to make pancakes in flower shapes, as per Emma's specifications. The results were abstract. "Good morning," he said, looking up from his questionable pancake artistry with a smile that seemed brighter than usual. "How did you sleep?" "Great," Sarah said, then looked at the pan. "Would you like some help with those flowers?" "Please," Marcus said gratefully. "I'm apparently much better at software engineering than breakfast artistry." As Sarah took over pancake duties and Marcus poured coffee, the rest of the children began appearing in various states of morning readiness. Emma appeared in her school clothes but with her hair still braided for sleep, carrying a brush and a hopeful expression. Zoe stumbled downstairs in pajamas and immediately began the complex process of packing her school bag while simultaneously eating cereal and checking her homework. Tommy bounded into the kitchen, already dressed, and launched into an energetic recounting of the dream he'd had about flying dinosaurs, while Maya appeared with her sketch pad and began drawing the breakfast scene. It was chaotic and loud and wonderful, and Sarah found herself moving through it all with an ease that surprised her. She braided Emma's hair while keeping an eye on the pancakes, helped Zoe find her missing math homework while listening to Tommy's dream narrative, and successfully created flower-shaped pancakes that actually looked like recognizable flora. "These are perfect," Emma declared, examining her breakfast with the critical eye of a 6-year-old pancake connoisseur. "Way better than Daddy's abstract art flowers." "Hey," Marcus protested with mock offense. "My flowers were interpretive." "They were blobs," Zoe said matter-of-factly, "but we love you anyway." As the morning progressed through the familiar dance of getting everyone ready for school, Sarah realized that she had unconsciously integrated herself into their routine. She knew without being told that Tommy needed extra time to find his backpack, that Emma couldn't reach her lunchbox on the high shelf, that Zoe needed gentle reminders to eat breakfast because she got too focused on organizing her school supplies. She knew that Marcus would pack 5 lunches with impressive efficiency while mentally running through his work schedule for the day, and that James would want to hug everyone goodbye at least twice to make sure they knew he would miss them. When it came time for the school drop-off routine, Marcus hesitated at the door with car keys in hand. "You don't have to come with us," he said. "I mean, you're welcome to, but I know you probably have things to do today." Sarah looked around at the cheerful chaos of 5 children getting ready to leave for school, at Marcus with his slightly rumpled work shirt and his car keys and his patient expression, at the house that had become home in ways she was still discovering. "Actually," she said, grabbing her purse and James's diaper bag, "I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be." As they loaded into Marcus's van for the school run, With Sarah automatically buckling James into his car seat while Marcus helped the older kids with their backpacks, she caught sight of herself in the rearview mirror. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. Happier, more alive, more herself than she had been in years. "Sarah," Zoe said from the back seat as they pulled out of the driveway, "are you going to be here when we get home from school?" Sarah looked at Marcus, who was focused on driving but clearly listening for her answer. "Do you want me to be here?" "Yes," came the immediate chorus from all 4 school-aged children. "Then I'll be here," Sarah promised. And as they drove through their neighborhood toward the school, with children chattering and Marcus humming along to the radio, and James pointing out every dog and truck they passed, Sarah realized that she had found exactly what she had been missing, without ever knowing she was looking for it. She had found her family, and they had found her, and somehow that made all the difference in the world. 1 year and 3 months after meeting in the grocery store cereal aisle, Sarah was standing in Marcus's backyard watching 5 children attempt to build what Tommy had declared would be the most epic fort in the history of forts. The project had been ongoing for 2 hours and showed no signs of reaching completion, mainly because each child had a different vision of what constituted epic architecture. Emma wanted a princess tower with windows for optimal light. Maya insisted they needed an art studio space with good ventilation. Tommy was lobbying for multiple secret tunnels and a dinosaur observation deck. Zoe, now 13, and increasingly aware of her status as the eldest, was trying to bring some engineering logic to the proceedings. And James, now 4 and even more opinionated than before, had decided the whole structure needed to be tall enough for a grown-up to stand in. "Sarah!" Emma called from inside what appeared to be the main fort structure. "We need your opinion on window placement." "I'll be right there," Sarah called back. But she was momentarily distracted by the sight of Marcus emerging from the house carrying a pitcher of lemonade and wearing an expression of amused bewilderment that she had come to associate with particularly ambitious children's projects. "How's the construction going?" he asked, setting the pitcher on the picnic table that had become the unofficial fort construction headquarters. "Well, they've moved beyond the planning stage into what I believe architects call creative disagreement," Sarah replied with a grin. "Emma and Tommy are having a heated debate about whether dinosaurs would prefer towers or underground bunkers." Marcus laughed, slipping his arm around Sarah's waist in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over the past year. "My money's on Tommy. His dinosaur knowledge is encyclopedic, and his passion for the subject is unmatched." Sarah leaned into Marcus's warmth, marveling as she often did at how perfectly she fit against his side, how right it felt to stand with him watching their children, because that's what they were now, their children, engaged in the serious business of childhood. "Sarah." "Marcus." Maya appeared from behind a particularly elaborate blanket configuration, waving her sketch pad. "I drew the final plans, and I think everyone will be happy with the design. But I need you to help us figure out the engineering part." The next hour was spent in serious consultation about load-bearing pillows, the structural integrity of various blanket types, and the feasibility of incorporating a pulley system for snack delivery. Sarah found herself naturally mediating disputes between the younger children, while Marcus handled the more complex engineering challenges, their partnership so seamless that they barely had to communicate about who would tackle which aspect of the project. "You two are really good at this," Zoe observed, during a brief break in construction when the younger children had been dispatched to gather more building materials from around the yard. "At what?" Sarah asked, though she was pretty sure she knew what Zoe meant. "At being parents together," Zoe said matter-of-factly. "You don't even have to talk about who's going to handle what. You just know." Sarah felt her chest warm at the observation. Over the past months, she and Marcus had fallen into a rhythm of shared parenting that felt as natural as if they had been doing it for years. They had learned each other's strengths and compensated for each other's weaknesses without ever having a formal conversation about division of labor. Marcus was better at the big picture stuff, making sure everyone had what they needed for school, keeping track of schedules and appointments, mediating the more serious sibling conflicts. Sarah excelled at the detail work, remembering that Emma was nervous about her upcoming school presentation, noticing when Tommy was getting overwhelmed by too much stimulation, making sure Maya always had art supplies available for sudden inspiration. Together, they had created a household that ran on love and patience and the kind of organized chaos that somehow worked perfectly for their family. "We've had good teachers," Marcus said, looking at Zoe with the pride and love that Sarah had learned he reserved for moments when his children displayed the wisdom and kindness that their mother had instilled in them. That evening, after the fort had been completed to everyone's satisfaction,
a process that had involved 3 major redesigns, 2 snack breaks, and 1 emergency consultation with a neighborhood dog who had apparently offered valuable input on tunnel placement. Sarah found herself in the familiar routine of bedtime preparation. She helped Emma pick out clothes for the next day, listened to Maya's plans for a new art project involving the fort as a subject, and supervised toothbrushing while Marcus handled the complex process of getting James into pajamas without derailing his elaborate bedtime story about dinosaur adventures. "Sarah," Tommy said as she tucked him into bed, "can I ask you something important?" "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Tommy looked unusually serious for an 8-year-old whose biggest concerns usually involved dinosaur-related trivia. "Are you and Dad going to get married?" Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. It wasn't the first time one of the children had asked about marriage, but the question never got easier to answer. The truth was, she and Marcus had been dancing around the topic for months, both clearly moving in that direction, but neither quite ready to take the leap into making it official. "Why do you ask?" Sarah said, settling on the edge of his bed. "Because Jimmy at school says that people who love each other and live together and take care of kids together are supposed to get married." "And you and Dad do all those things." Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah thought for the second time in recent memory. "What would you think about that? If your dad and I got married?" Tommy considered this with the seriousness he usually reserved for dinosaur classification discussions. "I think it would be good," he said finally, "because then you'd officially be our mum, and we'd officially be your kids, and nobody could say we weren't a real family." Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. "Tommy, sweetheart, we're already a real family. A piece of paper wouldn't make us more real than we already are." "I know," Tommy said, "but it would make it official. And I think official is important sometimes." 20 minutes later, after finishing the bedtime routine and making sure all 5 children were settled for the night, Sarah found Marcus in the kitchen loading the dishwasher, a task that had somehow multiplied in complexity since the addition of fort construction snacks and lemonade glasses. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, noticing her distracted expression. "Tommy asked me if we're going to get married," Sarah said without preamble, Marcus's hands stilled on the plate he was loading.
What did you tell him?
"I told him we're already a real family," Sarah said. "But he made a good point about making things official."
Marcus turned to face her fully. Dishwasher forgotten.
"Sarah, are we talking about what I think we're talking about?" Sarah took a breath, realizing they had finally reached the conversation they had been circling around for months. "Marcus, I love you. I love you, and I love those 5 amazing children, and I love the life we've built together. I wake up every morning grateful to be part of this family, and I go to sleep every night hoping I get to do it again tomorrow." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes never leaving her face. "I love you too," he said quietly. "I love you more than I thought I could love anyone, after Lisa. You've brought so much joy and stability and love into our lives that sometimes I can't believe you're real." "So what are we waiting for?" Sarah asked. Marcus smiled, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. "Actually, I've been waiting for the right moment to ask you properly." Sarah stared at the box, then at Marcus's face, which was showing a combination of nervousness and hope and love that made her heart race. "Sarah Martinez," Marcus said, opening the box to reveal a simple, beautiful diamond ring. "Will you marry me? Will you officially be part of this crazy, wonderful family? Will you be my wife and their mother, and put us all out of our misery by making this permanent?" Sarah looked at the ring, then at Marcus's hopeful face, then around the kitchen that had become the heart of their home. She thought about the grocery store meeting that had changed everything, about the gradual ways she had fallen in love not just with Marcus, but with the whole beautiful chaos of their life together. She thought about Emma's gap-toothed smile, and Tommy's dinosaur expertise, and Maya's artistic vision, and Zoe's growing confidence, and James's generous hugs. She thought about Marcus's patient heart and the way he made her feel like she belonged somewhere important. "Yes," she said, laughing through tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Yes to all of it. Yes to making it official and permanent and real in every possible way." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Sarah heard the sound of footsteps on the stairs, followed by excited whispers and poorly suppressed giggles. Within moments, 5 children in various states of pajama readiness appeared in the kitchen doorway, clearly having been listening from the top of the stairs. "Did she say yes?" Emma asked in a whisper that carried throughout the house. "She said yes," Marcus confirmed, pulling Sarah into his arms. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 5 children cheering and launching themselves at their newly engaged parents, creating a group hug that was equal parts joyful and chaotic and perfect. "Does this mean we get to call you Mom now?" James asked, his small hand patting Sarah's cheek. "If you want to," Sarah replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to," James said decisively. "Mom, Sarah, I like how that sounds. We should plan a wedding," Maya announced, already pulling out her ever-present sketch pad. "I have ideas about decorations and flowers and what everyone should wear." "Can we have dinosaur decorations?" Tommy asked hopefully. "Can I play piano at the ceremony?" Zoe added. "Can we invite my whole class so they can see that we have the best family?" Emma chimed in. As the children began making increasingly elaborate plans for a wedding that was approximately 5 minutes old, Sarah caught Marcus's eye over their heads. He was smiling with the kind of pure happiness that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. 6 months later, on a perfect Saturday afternoon in May, Sarah Martinez became Sarah Johnson. In a ceremony held in the backyard, where 5 children had built countless forts and played countless games, and where a family had grown from chance into choice into forever. The wedding was exactly as chaotic and wonderful as their courtship had been. Maya's decorations were ambitious and artistic, incorporating flowers and ribbons and what appeared to be a dinosaur-themed centerpiece that Tommy had insisted was essential for proper celebrations. Zoe played piano beautifully, performing a piece she had composed herself for the occasion. Emma served as ring bearer and took her job seriously enough to practice walking slowly for weeks beforehand. James, as best man, forgot his lines but made up for it by announcing loudly that he was so happy Mum Sarah is staying forever. But the most perfect moment came during the vows, when Marcus and Sarah promised not just to love each other, but to love the family they had built together, to honor the children who had brought them together, and to create a home where everyone belonged completely. "We are not the family we planned," Marcus said, looking out at their 5 children who were sitting in the front row trying to contain their excitement. "We are the family we found, the family we chose, the family we became by accident and kept on purpose." Sarah's vows were simpler. "I promise to love you and these 5 amazing children for all the days of my life. I promise to show up for soccer games and school concerts and bedtime stories and grocery store adventures. I promise to help build forts and dry tears and celebrate victories both big and small. I promise to be exactly what this family needs me to be, for as long as you'll have me." "Forever," Tommy called out from the audience, causing everyone to laugh and cry at the same time. As they exchanged rings and sealed their promises with a kiss, Sarah thought about the woman she had been just over a year ago. Lost, lonely, defined by what she couldn't have instead of what she could give. That woman couldn't have imagined this moment, couldn't have dreamed that her greatest pain would lead to her greatest joy. The reception was held in the same backyard, with dancing and cake and toast that ranged from heartfelt to hilarious. The children took turns giving speeches about their new official family, with Tommy's extensive remarks about dinosaur-related wedding traditions being a particular highlight. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Sarah found herself on the back porch with Marcus, watching their children play in the gathering dusk. They were still in their wedding clothes but had long since abandoned any pretense of staying clean or neat. Emma's flower girl dress was stained with cake frosting, James's tiny suit was missing its bow tie, and everyone's hair was mussed from dancing. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, slipping his arm around his new wife's waist. Sarah looked at her ring, then at the house that was now officially her home, then at the 5 children who were now officially her stepchildren, but who had really been hers from the moment they accepted her into their chaos. "Just one," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Oh? I regret that it took me 34 years to find you all," Sarah said. "Think of all the grocery store adventures and fort building and bedtime stories I missed." Marcus laughed, pulling her closer. "Well, Mrs. Johnson, I think we can make up for lost time. After all, we have the rest of our lives to perfect our grocery shopping technique and our fort architecture skills." From the yard came the sound of Tommy calling that he had found a particularly interesting bug that everyone needed to see immediately, followed by Emma's announcement that she was starting a wedding planning business and taking clients, followed by Maya's request for art supplies so she could document the bug discovery for posterity. "Think we should go mediate?" Marcus asked. "In a minute," Sarah said, savoring the moment of watching her family, their family, be exactly who they were meant to be. "I just want to remember this. All of it." As they stood together on the porch, surrounded by the evidence of a perfect day and the promise of all the perfect days to come, Sarah realized that sometimes the best stories are the ones you never see coming.
Sometimes the family you're meant to have is not the one you planned for, but